Welcome. So, big news. Decred gets listed on Kraken. How amazing is that? This is Decred's first major listing. Decred is of course available on Binance, but this is the first listing where Americans can actually buy Decred directly, unless you're in New York. Exitus, that's you, I think. How's it going, Exitus?
Yeah, doing good. We got the Kraken listing done, and I think it probably comes as a surprise to most people because there was no really announcement about it coming, right? There was no hype. It just came out of nowhere, which was a bit funny. But yeah, we have a DCR USD pair. So we now have that easy on ramp for people looking to trade DCR USD. And like you said, New York residents cannot use Kraken. We're basically considered almost like being from Iran or North Korea to crypto exchanges, because New York has all these different laws, and I would strongly recommend not moving here.
Well, I mean, myself and Exus, I think it must have been Friday, and Exus says, "Hey, let's do a live stream to me." I say, "Oh yeah, cool, that'd be great. Actually, we're due one." I said, "What should we do it on?" And Exus' first thing was, "Have you not checked your Twitter? Have you not checked your Twitter today?" I was like, "Oh God, I've missed something." So quickly checked Twitter, and there it was, Kraken. I was like, "Oh my God, this is huge, absolutely huge." So yeah, fantastic. So the story that I would like to kind of go into is in 2024 there was two big ticket items that Decred was missing. If you remember, we were just about to start a kind of a bull run, if you like, and obviously Bitcoin had a massive one, and a whole bunch of other people had a massive one, but Decred couldn't really participate because it was missing two big things, and those two big things were a cake wallet, or sorry, a mobile wallet that was prominent and user friendly. So people that weren't desktop proficient or didn't really have a desktop or didn't like using a desktop could actually use their mobile to actually store their coins on a decent wallet. Decode didn't really have that. So that's the first ticket item. And in 2025, we got Cake Wallet. And the next one was, the American audience couldn't actually participate in Decred because to actually get Decred was an absolute, it was hard work. So 2 years later, we've literally come full circle, and we've kind of, or you guys have, and I can't include myself in that because I had nothing to do with it. But you guys have filled the gap. We now have those two big ticket items. We are available on Cake Wallet, and we're available on an American exchange. So when there is another bull run, and by the looks of it, we're kind of hit the worst possible time where the kind of market since we got listed, we've dropped like 5%, I think, to $16 from about 17. But when it does happen, we're kind of ready for it, which I think is absolutely amazing. It's great that the ecosystem, even though we've kind of suffered 5 odd years of bear market and downward pressure, we're still building, integrations are still happening, and the ecosystem is always getting better. I mean, what do you make of that, Exodus?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we're moving forward, and we of course acknowledge how important these listings are, that these easy fiat on ramps. And I think a big thing now is it kind of cements Decred as this completely legitimate cryptocurrency, having this listing, and we meet all their compliance requirements, and we meet their liquidity requirements, and that's something not every project can do. So I think certainly we all know Decred has good technology. It's always been a solid cryptocurrency, but it in my opinion, it just cements everything. Like, it's a good project, and now you can buy it very easily, DC or USD. It's very easy to buy from their app or on their the Kraken Pro, which you save fees if you use Kraken Pro. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what comes from here. It looks like the price is still tracking Binance, so I imagine Binance. Anyone who arbitrages probably quickly deployed trading bots to track the price pretty hard. But really curious to see what comes of it. I was a bit shocked the price fell. I was expecting maybe nothing crazy, but maybe like a 10-15% jump. We just kind of it kind of launched at a bad time where the entire market was on a downtrend. So, but we'll see what happens. It's going to take time for people to kind of sign up and get the trading there, because obviously people are kind of stuck in their ways of how they trade, whether you're on the DEX or Binance or Mexi or other places.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. like you said, when we were having that conversation about the doing a live stream, that was one of the first things I checked. Oh, I wonder what the price has actually done, and to see it kind of drop to a local low was crazy actually. But this is the Decred way, isn't it? We have some really good news, and that's what happens. It kind of just goes, poof, you know. So that kind of surprised me, I mean, talking about price, and this is what everyone wants to know, and I'll ask Exodus his expectation in a minute, but my expectation for price is it's always going to gradually get better. You know, it's always going to gradually improve the more of these ecosystem things get implemented. But yeah, so didn't surprise me it dropped, and I suspect over the next coming months we will see that increase. Now, I have been tracking volume over the last 3 days, and Kraken is doing roughly 50k worth of volume per day, which I didn't think was too bad for the first 3 days. Obviously, when you compare it to something like Dash, which is probably our next big competitor, they're doing 2 million in volume per day. So you know we've got a little way to go there, but it's a good start. But in terms of price, and this is what everyone listening right now wants to know, of which we have about 5 people. Now that's surprising. Are we live on X? But while we get into that, so it's surprising. So in terms of price, what do you see happening next? Do you see a gradual increase, this slow decline over the summer, then an increase, or do you see this probably going quite mental over the coming months?
Yeah, we're live on X. I guess it's not reporting the numbers to you. I mean, I have no idea what to say as far as price goes. I mean, I think it should help in the long run. Obviously, it's been 4 years since that consensus change where the miners, the proof of work reward was reduced to 10%, and then we're approaching about 2 years since it went to full GPU mined. So hopefully all of these things kind of come into play, and also the proof of stake reward is now below 1 DCR per vote. So hopefully everything kind of comes together with this listing where we have those supply shock, all those metrics coming together. And I'm just always surprised that there's so much Decred to be dumped where, we'll be at $20, then a few days later it goes all the way to 16. And, we have pretty thin markets, so it kind of goes both ways. When it pumps really hard. And when it dumps, it also dumps fairly hard. But yeah, I really don't know what to say. All I know is now that we have this exchange, we can kind of engage in more active marketing, especially in the US, because prior to this, there was almost no pointed marketing in the US because we didn't have an easy on ramp. So, I love the DEX. We all like DCR DEX and buys them all. But obviously there were some, it's a little bit challenging to trade there. It's just that extra bit more difficult. But yeah, I would like to see maybe a bit more marketing now, especially US based. We do have several $1,000s in ads on the Twitter account we can use. So I'm planning on using that and really kind of pointing it towards Kraken, like, hey, here's Decred, you can get it on Kraken, right? So I think the two would go together.
And I think in terms of what you're saying about the US market, it's literally the biggest market. So to be completely excluded from it was for 10 years basically has been crazy. And I think it's been detrimental. But actual fact, as I've said many times, it's forced Decred into a position where it has to do things outside the box. And in terms of DCR DEX, I still see that as a massively vital piece of infrastructure going forward. It kind of needs to happen. It needs to be as the best it can possibly be. But having Kraken right now, I can't tell you how much it kind of fills me with kind of like, yes, at last we're being recognized. At last, people are going to be able to buy it and actually use it. And when they buy Decred now, they can actually move it to a decent mobile wallet. They can move it to Cake Wallet. And it's absolutely amazing. So I think that's brilliant. And just to give you guys a contrast, I did a video a few years back on what was the best way to buy Decred. So for instance, I took a US customer and I said, right, if you're a US customer, this is the best way to buy it. And it takes 5 steps. So the first thing is whatever exchange you're using, you have to deposit your US dollars. So whether that's Coinbase, Kraken, whatever, you'd have had to deposit your US dollar, then you'd have had to buy Bitcoin, then you'd have had to move that Bitcoin BTC, has to be BTC, to DCR DEX, and then you'd have to buy Decred in lots of 40 DCR, and then you'd have to move it to Crediton. Okay, so that's like 4 or 5 steps. Sorry, 5 steps, which had huge slippage between exchanges. It was massively time consuming, so more often than not, it would take between 20 and 30 minutes. You required 2 exchanges rather than just one. It was pretty expensive. 40 DCI even back then was over $400. And you obviously needed a desktop computer. Now, in comparison, I've just written this out, and I will do a tutorial on this just so we've got it there so we can promote that as well. But the new method for a US customer is you deposit USD to Kraken, you buy Decred, you move it to Cake. You know, all of which can be achieved within a few minutes, which is absolutely incredible. And when you streamline it like that, it's kind of, you get to that point of view where it's actually this is for users that want massive convenience. This is a huge improvement, I think. What do you think of that?
Well, yeah, of course, it's going to be a big improvement, and on top of all that, it's not just an on ramp. This is a extremely well established exchange. People trust it. It's secure. They've been around a long time. They've been growing. I believe they're planning to go public. Kraken as an entity is going public. I believe they got some sort of I forget the exact wording, but they got direct access to the U.S. banking system. I'd have to relook into that. But basically, the point is they're quite big, and I would say they're getting close to Coinbase. So again, it cements Decred as a valid cryptocurrency. And yeah, it's a big deal, and hopefully, this has prepared us for the next bull market for sure. On top of everything else everyone is doing, and as far as the DEX goes, yeah, I've already had people ask me, is there a Kraken arbitrage bot with the DEX? And no, there isn't, but that would be amazing for someone to do a proposal to get that done. Because I guess people who are using Binance just never had any interest doing arbitrage with the built-in tools, because I don't know if anyone ever used that. But yeah, it's a big deal, and it also paves the way for other listings, because once you get listed on one of these exchanges, it's like, okay, Kraken's clearly done the compliance work. It's very easy to get other listings. So once we get a sustained price increase where we break back into the top 100, I can certainly see Coinbase or others happening in very short time, because adding Decred is not a big hurdle. It takes like a day of work,
Oh yeah, in terms of these guys actually running the nodes stuff, it's so easy. And I can see probably Gemini listing Decred first, but I suspect both Gemini and Coinbase are now watching very closely the liquidity side of things. And I was looking at, actually, that $2 million was Coinbase. It wasn't Kraken for the Dash USD exchange. Yeah, and I was, like I say, I'm watching the volume. So, and I would imagine they're watching the volumes very closely. And as soon as it gets to that kind of 500,000 per day, I think it will be you can't ignore that when it's Kraken doing it. If it was Binance doing 500,000 a day, you think, oh, well, loads of wash trade, and it probably still is similar on Kraken, but probably nowhere near as much. But we'll wait and see. But I definitely think they're probably now that Kraken has done all the compliance for Decred, I would definitely say that these other exchanges, and there's only really two that we care about, and that would probably be Gemini and Coinbase. Once they see the liquidity go up, I can see them getting really interested. Just a final thing about that particular exchange. I love the fact that Kraken are not using USDC or USDT. They are physically, you deposit dollars and you are swapping your dollar for Decred. And I think that's incredible. Actually, I really liked that. It does make it a little bit more complex. If you're coming from say USDC or Decred on USDC, it does make it a little bit more complex, but not overly to get to Kraken. But no, it probably doesn't actually, because you can still deposit Decred, go to US dollar, unless you're a Brit user like myself, where I'd have to go Decred, US dollar, and then British pounds, which they do have that. I've checked it. I am now a member of Kraken, but I'm still waiting for all my kind of 24 hours to pass, and I've got to give them a whole bunch of personal samples and things like that. So yeah, what they ask for is actually huge. They want all my tax record, my tax ID, and everything, which is absolutely crazy. But I saw on Coinbase the other day that Coinbase are now asking for all my tax references and stuff. So yeah, that's a bit crazy. But no, I like the fact that they're going direct to USD rather than USDC. Yeah, I mean,
That's intense just to sign up.
it's.
Wow.
I mean, yeah. It's like I say. They've. I've got to give them my driver's license. They've asked for my address. They've asked for my phone number. They've asked for my email account. My full name. All this stuff. Absolutely loads and loads of details. But I guess that is the same. That's the same with Coinbase as well. So, do you guys in the US, if you sign up to Coinbase, you have to give your tax reference and stuff?
I signed up a long time ago, and all I gave was my ID. That was all I gave them. So it depends, how much you trade and how much you withdraw, but they can hit you with like, oh, what's the source of funds, and we need a your gas bill or electric bill with your name on it, stuff like that. But yeah, you hear these things and then you remember, oh, I can just use DCR Dex and never have to deal with this stuff. It's really, yeah, it's crazy. And as far as the EU goes, we're not available in the EU yet on Kraken, and the reason for that is they require it's called MICA or MICA, a white paper, and basically it's really frustrating. You have to have a legal entity, like a corporation, sign off to do a white paper and be legally responsible for all the details in that white paper. And basically, what it is it just says what your project's about. And there's all this weird stuff where they calculate the environmental impact per transaction of your blockchain. So they're all obsessed with the environmental impact. Luckily, because Decred is now mostly proof of stake, that doesn't really apply to us so much. So we won't have trouble there. But there is a potential where if you're, harming the environment or whatever, they can deny you this. And they also assign you a digital token identifier. So we're going to be entering into contract with a European law firm to get it done. You actually need to do that just to get it done, just so you know you got it done correctly and filed correctly. But once we get that done, it's called MICA white paper. Then we can be listed on EU and Kraken, and we can do DCR Euro if there's demand for it. So we're not sure if we want to do DCR Euro, just because you'd have to run a market maker for it and commit quite a bit of money to it, and we don't know what the demand will be like. So we're actually kind of happy we can do this first rollout with just DCR USD, kind of see how it goes, and then about 2 months from now we should have Kraken in the EU. That's how long it takes to do the white paper, about minimum 2 months, because once you do it and you submit it, there's a minimum wait time of 30 days before it goes live. So we were very fortunate that Kraken allowed us to just go launch in the US without having to do the EU stuff first. So that was nice.
Like I say, I can't contest yet on whether the USD to British pound exchange works yet, but I am going to try it this week, and as I do my first exchange, I will do a tutorial for it. But I know on Coinbase, I'm not allowed to use USD. So in order for me to get to pounds on Coinbase, I physically have to use USDC, which is really, really annoying actually. But it's not really, because there's no difference on Coinbase. They basically see USDC and US dollar as the same thing. But obviously, I like the fact that it's done that way. So I will let you know this week if it works in the UK, and I'm sure it does. The fact that they've got a pair that says USD to GBP tells me it will work, but obviously until I've done it, I can't tell you that much. But in terms of getting a euro, I'm of the same mind that I was with DCR Dex, where it's better to build one pair, build that pair really well, and then look at others. Once the USD DCR pair gets to about that 500,000 stage, I reckon it would be fine to look at others, and having direct exchange for the euro GBP would be absolutely awesome, of course.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, if the Decred grows big enough, they would probably just do a DCR to British pound pair, right? So hopefully that's the goal, that we can get big enough to where, we don't have to worry about, oh, is there going to be enough volume? It's just that popular where you can get listed in all these different currencies. And that's the great thing with Kraken. They support so many things, and they're in so many countries. Fortunately, they're not in Japan, so our Japanese community was a little upset there. But they are all over the place, and I think they just did a partnership with like the UAE or somewhere in the Middle East. They did like some sort of partnership, so they're expanding. They're doing a lot of good stuff, and it was just great that they were open to listing us, and we got it done. It wasn't super fast, but it was several months basically. I can't give too many details, but yeah, it took a little bit of persistence. Let's say that. And I believe as
Yeah,
far as getting listed on Coinbase, it's just a matter of volume. It's a matter of, if you have enough volume, you will be listed.
I think so. I think, like I said before, once they see a decent amount of volume coming through on dailies, and I'd imagine that's probably close to 500,000, that it'll be unignorable by that point. And the fact that it started off at about 50k is really impressive. Yeah, I won't push you too much on the process. I know well, these things they're hard. They take a little bit of time, and there are people behind the scenes working on it. And I know a lot of the protagonists in the Decred community always moan about, oh, there's not enough marketing, there's not enough this, that, and the other. And it's very difficult to say to them, yes, this stuff is happening in the background. It's happening. You've got to be patient. It's not a 5-minute fix. If it was, it would already happen. But there are people working on this stuff, and obviously Exitus is a massive front runner on this, and he's doing a great job with his team. And if you are interested in joining the Decred community, you need to join Vanguard. You need to put your best foot forward and get involved and build and become a part of the marketing team with Vanguard. But yeah, lots of incredible stuff. And you've only got to look at what's happened in these five years where we've been in a complete bear market, where our prices just tumbled. The core people have stayed. The core people are still there. They're still building every day. They're still trying to get all this work done. It's incredible actually. And you've only got to look at the DCRD repo to see Dave Collins' work at the minute on optimizing DCRD is absolutely incredible. So it's still happening, and that's what we all need to remember, is the work's still happening, and it's looking good. I mean, the fact is, it's taken 2 years, and we are now completely mobile compatible. We're on the best, in my opinion, we're on the best mobile wallet in the space, Cake Wallet, and we're now in the top 3 best exchanges in the space, Kraken. So you can't ask for much more than that, can you? Apart from Coinbase, of course.
Yeah, certainly. And there's a few dexes we can look at. Thorchain did have that hack the other day, which kind of validates what the DCR Dex devs were saying. But I really like Near. We can get Near done if the community wants to. We can get it done. I would like for the DCR price to be a little bit higher before we kind of do that, just so we kind of have some more bargaining chips with them, so to speak. Where the more popular that you are, the more reason they have to add you, right? Whereas if you're not popular, if your price is low, they kind of ignore you. So we can get Near done. Maybe Hyperliquids kind of become a big one, and what other, maybe like Maya protocol or something. And there's always like new dexes being developed too. So I think one thing I would like to see is kind of being on top of that and trying to get listed sooner than later, I guess. Front run the whole thing before a dex blows up and it's super popular and suddenly they want $1 million for you to list them and stuff like that. But yeah, what else is there to talk about? Victor has his idea for the Decred workboard. I'm not sure if you've seen that.
Yeah, I didn't mind it, but I think it's the same old problem, isn't it? Where the biggest problem Decred has is getting, or not? No, that's not right. It's not a big problem. It's not a problem at all. But one of the issues, I suppose, that Decred has is getting new developers. But it's not that we can't get new developers; it's that we can't get developers of high enough caliber. And that's where we're aiming for. And I liked the idea of an issue-based thing where basically a developer comes along and they want to get involved in Decred, so they see an issue on a GitHub, they fix the issue, they publish it, and then someone says, all right, this person fixed that, we're going to use it, so you have to pay them X amount, because that was what the bug bounty was for that particular fix or that particular implementation. So yeah, I'm in two minds. I like the idea, but I think also if it's not implemented within Politeia, and we all know that Politeia is kind of a bit of a stagnant thing at the minute, and it hopefully will move to Bison Relay at some point, or at least get improved. But if it's not in Politeia, I don't think people will use it either. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword. What are your thoughts on it?
So I agree with the general premise that it is kind of hard to attract people, and it's just so unorthodox to have someone new submit a proposal just to maybe they want to work on a few minor things, and you need to gain basically credit with the community first, right? So if someone comes out of nowhere, does a proposal, it usually fails if the community doesn't know the person. So we're kind of asking a lot from people to just onboard as a new contributor. And this is, why I did, the Decred Vanguard proposal is it's easy to onboard new people and kind of get them going and, as contributors without them needing to submit their own proposal for every little thing. So I would like to see something like that for development. Now, obviously, development costs much, much more, but I don't think it'd be a bad idea to every year have, let's say, $200,000 for the year, just for new contributors to work on kind of minor things and get things done, as long as everything is transparently reported. And obviously, as Victor had in his idea, that some money would be for the reviewers, because that's another big obstacle is people will do work and then no one reviews it and it never gets approved and fully integrated. So need a little bit of money for reviewers, and I would just love to see new contributors, new life. And especially right now with, like, say, the DEX, I mean, obviously the work on that has stopped for now, but there's opportunity for someone to come in and, if anything, just cut that latest release version 1.1 and, work on a few other minor things like the Kraken bot, Kraken arbitrage bot, work on, what I suggested, liquidity incentives, so there's opportunity there. I guarantee if someone came along with a solid idea to do liquidity incentive on the DEX, I absolutely think it will be approved.
I think, yeah, 100%. I think the problem with reviewing work, especially when it pertains to things that are important, like the Crediton, Bison Wallet, Bison Relay, DCRD, and things like that, I don't think the community is just going to trust anyone. I know in that thread of comments is why I kind of said, Jay Holstock actually Jamie has quite a lot of stand in the community, and basically if he put himself up as a reviewer, the job would be done properly. And that's what you really need, isn't it? If you're going to get a reviewer, you need somebody that's going to do the job properly, because obviously lots of things are kind of counting on that. I guess it really depends on who the reviewers will be, who's putting the proposal forward, and like you said, on all the various checks. As long as the checks were in place, as long as there was a solid person behind it that's gonna review it, I don't see the community being against it at all. In terms of DCR DEX, one of the big issues with DCR DEX is they didn't set themselves, the targets were wishy-washy. It was like, yeah, we're going to do this work, and we're going to do this work, so just pay us, that kind of approach. And it kind of got a little bit frustrating, because when targets weren't being met, it's like, well, are you just going over the same work and it's being kicked further down the line? And I think exactly the same as you. If we have someone proposed on the DEX and they say, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, this is how much I'm going to charge, these are the checkpoints, boom. I don't think anyone would have any problems. Like you said, in actual fact, the fact that the DCR DEX guys have built and it's been paid for, this version 1.1 release, and it's not been released, it's not been packaged. It kind of it does leave a sour taste in my mouth. I've got to be honest. It's like, is it not ready, or have you just walked away without kind of finishing the job? And that kind of does leave a very sour taste. So I don't know. I want DCR DEX. It has to be done. All the liquidity incentives and all the other stuff that you just talked about, they have to be done. But it needs a decent proposal, and it needs to kind of be stepping stone out. And honestly, if it's one of the existing guys that comes up with a proposal, they need to package 1.1 before anything goes further, I think.
Yeah, I think it's in somewhat of a challenging spot. I imagine Company Zero, some of those devs have the ability to do that release. Obviously, they're busy with DCRD and DCR Wallet and DCR Data, so it might be asking a lot. But I do think at some point they can get it done. And as far as I know, there have been some hints that they will eventually do the mesh, because they have, as you've said previously, they have experience with the mesh, with the mixing. So you can follow a kind of same pattern, and at the very least get an MVP, a minimal viable product, out the door for the mesh. And as far as I know, looking at the repo, that I think the mesh work has halted as well. I'm not totally sure. I would like to see a little more transparency around that, of kind of what's going on. And I think we as a community should expect that kind of thing. We should expect milestones and reports, and not it shouldn't just be kind of a free for all. Even though the DAO is a different way of doing work, we should still have a level of professionalism, right? I think we should demand that as stakeholders.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's no different than what you and I do. In the video proposal, everything that gets charged to the treasury is actually a credit. There's a link to it. And we say exactly what we do. And it's the same with the Vanguard. There are stepping stones. If you do X, Y, or Z, you get this payment, and so on. And I think that's just the logical way. And it should be no different with DEX. It can't be an endless payment. It's like, what? Set yourself a target, reach that target, and then move on to the next one. And there's no reason, if it's no different than DEX. If they knew it was going to take 2 years, why not put a 2-year proposal up when it first came in? That kind of bugs me a little bit. Putting these 6-month proposals up when there's no hope in hell of actually meeting a substantial target was, yeah. And I say it should have been a longer proposal. But anyway, I don't want to criticize those guys too much, and hopefully they package 1.1 and we can move forward with more target-driven stuff. In terms of the mesh, though, it would be lovely to see that incorporated with our privacy mesh. And I'm not really sure if it could be done, but certainly I would imagine that using some of the communication tools within the mesh, it would look fairly similar. I was trying to think about this the other day, and I kind of figured that it would probably need 3 or 4 different connection types to actually run the order books and run the communications between the atomic swaps. So yeah, I don't know, but it'd be nice. It'd be interesting to talk to someone like Dave C or J Rick and see what they think about if the privacy mesh could be repurposed for the DEX mesh. Sorry.
Yeah. So I was going to say, we have a comment here from X, Auxiriix Veltoran. He says, order book model with atomic swaps was always rather doomed. Order books was a bad idea. Solver model is better. So the solver model is basically what Near is, where you kind of just put in your price, put in how many coins you want, it gives you the price, and then it goes about and solves it, and it does the swap and gives you the coins. I mean, I don't fully agree. I mean, the DEX has done, how much in volume? $10, $20 million over the past year and a half alone. I mean, it's done volume. There's been a lot of trades. There's never been any hacks or problems. No one has ever lost money on the DEX. So I wouldn't say it was doomed necessarily. I do agree it is a somewhat difficult model, and we kind of learned that the hard way. But I would still like to see it continue, and I think it could still grow. But I would also, of course, like to see Decred on all, on the solver DEX as well, on Near, on the others in conjunction. I mean, DCR DEX, even though we talk about development, it is a finished product, right? DCR BTC atomic swaps have been finished since like 2022. It still works, even without the mesh, even without all these other kind of upgrades or whatever. It's the core of the core of it works. So, it's always going to be there. And I think it's great that it's always going to be there for anyone who wants to, permissionlessly trade, and they know the atomic swaps work. And lately the liquidity has been excellent on the DEX. The liquidity and volume has been quite good. So yeah.
I mean, in terms of the solver, it suggests that you're saying that it's hard to find a match, and that's definitely not true. I mean, when the USDC Decred pair was happening, you could find a match to $1. So it wasn't like you couldn't find a match. So it's not having to go, oh, I'm going to match. He wants $40, so I've got to match it with these three or four different users. On the other side, it could literally say, right, in that order book, I will just take those $40 off the table, and it could be 40 different people, and it will literally just, if you look at the receipt when it comes through, it actually shows you actually how many different trades have actually happened in one go. So yeah, it doesn't need that. Literally, the market, you say I want $40, it will grab them off the other side of the market. So yeah, it doesn't need you to solve complex problems like that. It's slightly more difficult with the BTC pair because obviously it's 40 DCR per one trade. But if there's 1,000 DCR over, a few different people, and I wanted 1,000 DCR, I could literally just put 1,000 DCR order in, and it would take all of the orders available. So yeah, that's the way I see that, and I don't think that's a problem at all. So no, atomic swaps are massively underrated, and I would definitely recommend anyone that's got the funds to trade in BTC to DCR to get onto Bison Wallet and give it a go, because it's a fantastic experience actually, and it's completely peer-to-peer. It doesn't require any KYC like I'm finding with Kraken, and it just happens. Within 3 confirmations, you've got your Decred, or you've got your BTC. Six confirmations actually, 3 either way. And it's a great experience actually, and the way it's all broken down is fantastic. So yeah, completely disagree with that one, but it would be nice to see more liquidity for sure.
Yeah. Were there any other topics we had?
I mean, the big one for me, obviously we've had 2 failed proposals. One, it wasn't a surprise. Crypto Power, as much as I liked the project and as much as I liked what the guys were trying to do, Kennedy and the other guys are trying to do there, I think it kind of it's had its day a little bit, and I think to get it to any meaningful kind of development, it really needs a front end change. So that didn't surprise me at all, and I think that kind of draws a line under that, unless they move to a Flutter front end. The one that did come as a massive shock to me was the poker game, and I was absolutely gutted when that failed. I wasn't too keen on the kind of aftermath either. I think that it's a very hard experience. Going through the proposal system is very, very difficult, and it's very, very emotional. Both Exitus and myself have been through it many times. And every time you're watching your votes come in and you're seeing all the no's, oh God, I wish they'd told me why they, what they want from this, or whatever. And it does get very emotional. And unfortunately, the worst thing you can do as a proposal owner is to kind of get all raged about it, which we've seen now. We've seen that in the DCR DEX proposals, and we've seen it for many, many years. But it's to ask the question to see if there's any reviews. And the worst thing about the poker one is there was no bad reviews. Pretty much everyone, unless you saw different, I don't think there was any bad reviews, but most people wanted it. So when it failed, it was like, oh, I wish somebody just said, look, this is why I don't think it's good, and then we could then it could be reviewed. So in the aftermath of all that, we've kind of been having discussions about why we think stakeholders might have not wanted it and so on. I mean, what was your thoughts on that one, Exus?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. I thought the crypto power proposal was very reasonable for a maintenance proposal, where I think it was like under $20,000 for the year, something like that to work on it. But I think Cake Wallet has completely made crypto power irrelevant. It is going to be our go-to mobile wallet. I really can't imagine anyone recommending crypto power over that. And I think it's just a matter of, being, business savvy and understanding that, and, trying not to be personal with these things and just saying, look, Cake Wallet's just better. They are constantly pushing out updates for Cake Wallet. They're adding hardware wallets. They're doing the UI. They have, I think, one of the most, they have a really hardworking dev team, and I'm really happy Decred's on there because I'm seeing updates all the time. And if anything, I would love to see a maintenance proposal for Cake Wallet, right? It's like, why can't we, why can't we do that? Why can't we add mixing? There's things to be added there. And it's, if the crypto power team has experience doing mixing in mobile, it's like, why not try out Cake Wallet? So, especially these days when you have AI, obviously vibe coding isn't a total solution, but if you're a developer and you're competent and you have AI to help you with things, there's no reason you just can't get things done anymore, right? The new versions of Claude and all the coding you can do is incredible. It's not going to be long before you and I can just code things with these AIs. And then the poker was a bit surprising because it seemed like people were supporting it. I don't know. I mean, I liked it. I thought the app was working really well. He had it working on mobile. It looked good. But yeah, I don't know. That's the problem, is some people aren't commenting. Maybe people don't want to, I have no idea, but it failed. And I guess maybe it was because many people weren't using it. It's hard to say, because there had already been a few different proposals, and, before you know it, maybe you've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on a poker game, few people are using. So I don't know, but it had a lot of potential. We have another comment. Sorry, go ahead.
So just before I finish that one off, one thing I would, and I said this in my comments to Victor, and I like Victor a lot, so none of it was personal, and I completely support the proposal. But if it is a getting people to play it problem, we could literally say, look, let's put a proposal up for a few grand and actually, get some pots going and get people playing. Build the ecosystem, then build the other stuff, because poker, as it was actually worked. It was a fine product. It's finished, and if people want to see people playing it, then that's the best way. Say, put a couple of grand up. You have 2 or 3 months of weekly tournaments. You collect all the stats to see how many people joined in, and go from there. And I don't think it would take very much to see its value. I think. I mean, I'm biased completely because blockchain gaming for me makes a lot of sense. So I'm completely biased, and I would love to see that go forward. But if it is to find out if it's worth pursuing, and let's face it, what a lot of stakeholders want to see is, can we get hundreds of people to play this game? I think it's a bit ambitious to say thousands, but can we get 100 people to play this game over the next 3 months? If the answer is yes, why not keep developing it? If the answer is no, then, it was a great experiment, and I think that kind of solves the problem of, we don't want to spend hundreds of thousands. But that's my 2 cents. But no, I completely support Victor, and gutted that it didn't pass. What are these comments, Nexus?
What are the pros and cons of privacy on DCR versus Zcash? It's a good question, I guess. But the first thing I'd say is Decred has a lot higher participation. I think something like 65% of Decred is in a mixed output. Decred's privacy is much more simple. It's simple, easy to audit. It's post-quantum ready. The mixing is done peer-to-peer. Zcash does have strong privacy using the zero knowledge proofs, but I believe they don't have a super high participation rate. I mean, the big focus with Decred is governance. It's not privacy. So the privacy is more of like a side feature of Decred, whereas for Zcash it's the main thing. I would say Zcash has overall stronger privacy, but you do get good privacy with Decred if you mix all your coins. I don't know, Phoenix, how do you feel about that?
I mean, there are a few things. So firstly is, when you mix with Decred, the actual mixing coordination is actually done off chain, which makes the transactions incredibly lightweight. If you look at the coordination on Zcash or Monero, the block size actually goes up quite considerably. Whereas with Decred, it's all off chain and then it settles on chain, which is incredible. Makes it completely really, really efficient. Also, because it's off chain, because it settles on chain, you also don't have any of these problems about auditability. I think X has said that as well, which is great. It kind of just happens, it's done, it's out of the way. And like X has said also, it's fantastic privacy, 60% participation, but privacy actually isn't our number one criteria. It's governance. Obviously, if we try to implement something like ZK snarks or ring signatures, there is a massive potential there of an inflation bug, and for Decred that would be absolutely catastrophic because it would wreck the governance system. Whereas for Zcash or Monero, it wouldn't necessarily matter. It depends on how bad it is. They could recover from it. Whereas, I mean, it would put the governance model for Decred completely in the water. So when it comes to the way we implement things, we always look at these methods that are not going to mess that up firstly. So we always wanted great privacy, and Stake Shuffle actually gives us that. It gives us amazing privacy. Plus we also have built-in features in our wallets where every single time you send coins or receive coins, it's a completely new address. So we also have those kind of anonymity sets as well, which is, it's crazy. The actual privacy on Decred is good enough, I think.
Yeah, and you can, as a Decred stakeholder, since the mixing is all built in, you're basically an anonymous stakeholder casting votes on different proposals and how to spend the treasury, which is a really cool element of being private, right? You're private with a voice and a vote, and that's something you don't have in Zcash. So we have another question. My two atoms, DCR DEX server not being a DEX and being a central server is a no-go. OB added too much complexity just for idealistic price discovery. Well, the thing with the DEX is all of the swaps are completely permissionless and decentralized. It's just the problem with the server not being decentralized in a mesh is technically a government or some entity could confiscate the server if they really didn't like Decred. Now, in the DEX's case, it's just simply not big enough for them to ever really worry about it. If it was doing $100 million in volume, I could see that every day. But if it's doing 20,000, 30,000, it's not an issue. But it's still something that needs the mesh, right? It really needs the mesh to be complete. But the swaps themselves are all decentralized. The central server can't change any of that. He also says, agreed. If
Before we
Zcash
move on, just to say is I don't see a world where we don't move to the mesh on DCR DEX because of the way governments are going after centralized entities in that way. It becomes too risky to keep the mesh running after a certain point in time, like X has just said. So, it will happen, and the actual model for mesh has always been there, but Decred does like to do it in stages. And it was the same with our privacy. Our privacy actually started on a centralized server, and now it's a complete mesh that's built into DCRD, and hopefully that'll be the same with DCR DEX.
I don't know who OB is. OB added too much complexity. I mean, they had atomic swap technology and said, hey, let's make a DEX out of it. And it works. It's maybe a little complex for a lot of people. But this was done in like 2020. This was way before solvers and that kind of thing. But yeah, he says if Zcash math were to break due to quantum or otherwise, Decred could be a good alternative. Yeah, I mean, I think Monero kind of won the privacy battle. I don't know if Decred would be the hedge necessarily. Again, the privacy feature in Decred, it's great to have. It's easy to use. There's a high participation. As Phoenix said, there's very little on-chain bloat from the privacy. And as Jake has said a few times, you can do block pruning with it. But, again, Decred's main focus is being governance, having a DAO, building things, attracting developers, that kind of thing. So, privacy is kind of a side thing.
And the privacy is already post-quantum secure as well, which is a pretty decent feature to have.
he's Don Freeman says, is ticket splitting ready so people can stake smaller amounts? No.
There's
Ticket
no
splitting
point.
is it was proposed in the latest DEX proposals and they didn't pass. But here's the thing, guys, is the yield from a Decred ticket is only about 5% per year, right? So it's as time has gone on and the block reward's gone down, the reward has shrunk. 5% isn't bad, but if you're splitting that 5%, let's say you can only afford half a ticket, now you're only getting 2.5, maybe 3% yield a year, which is it's just getting so small. And on top of that, you don't even get a vote. If you do the ticket split, you do not get a vote. So there's almost no point in doing ticket splitting at this point. It made sense 5 years ago when the block reward was high, when it was at 15% yield, and it's like, okay, I could ticket split and still get 7.5, maybe 10%. But now it's just really not worth it. And the ticket price is around right now about 200 Decred, which at current prices is, I don't know, $3,000, $3,500. So I guess for a lot of people that still might be too much, but yeah, I think it's just something that isn't going to happen. And there's a lot of engineering work for something few people are going to use with little benefit.
You know, we every time a bull market happens, we get, oh, can we ticket split? In actual fact, if you think about it logically, say for instance there was 40 people participating in a ticket, that's 40 output transactions. It's just blow. It's unnecessary blow. It really is. So you're literally, for every ticket that votes, you're going to get 40 plus 40 plus people kind of that get a transaction out, which is absolutely crazy. And for most of that, fees are going to eat that up crazy as well. Block fees are going to eat that up as well. So you're kind of, it's a lose-lose battle. At this particular moment, we're 10 years in, you know, it's still only going to cost you about $4,000 to actually buy a ticket. It's like, it's doable for pretty much anybody that cares. You know, if honestly, if you're just here for a quick buck and you're hoping ticket splitting is going to do that for you, you're in the wrong project. You really are, because, you know, you have to wait up to 144 days for your payout, and you're going to be like, you're so frustrated when you get your 0.01 Decred. Oh, like, you know, and then you got to do it all again, you know. So if you're in Decred for the long haul at this point, you know, save up. If it takes you, you know, the average ticket price is, like Exa said, about $250, 250 DCR. You know, if it takes you a year to get that amount, you've got it forever. Then you can keep voting. You're part of the governance. At this particular moment, you know, that's where your head needs to be at. And ticket splitting is going to be too much blow and too costly. It's going to be a really horrible experience for anyone with just a few Decred.
Okay, little bro asks, am I going to get banned if I impersonate Politea to export proposals? I'm going to be honest, I don't really know what you're saying. Are you talking about scraping the data from the API for the proposals? I mean, it's all open source technology. I don't see how you would necessarily get banned. I don't really know the context of your question. I don't know, Phoenix, if you can make sense of that.
Yeah, I mean, you can export stuff. I'm not sure, apart from the actual votes, how much you could gain from that. But it's all there. Like, say you know, it's all on-chain voting for all the consensus, and the final vote for proposals goes on chain as well. So it's all there. You know, you just run a Decred node and scrape it yourself, I suppose. Yeah, I don't see a problem with that at all. Like Exa says, I'm not sure how much extra data you would get. Like I say, most of it's public. So you'd either get it from Politea itself, from DCRD, or you'd get it from Decred voting.decred. So yeah, I don't see why not.
Yep. Don Freeman says, why is Decred developing two wallets, Decrediton and Bison? It's a good question. I mean, Decrediton really hasn't been updated in a while. It's basically been a finished wallet. And then DCR DEX kind of just took on a life on its own. I mean, initially, Bison Wallet didn't have staking or privacy or anything, and those were things they added later. But you know, obviously the focus on Bison Wallet is atomic swaps, and when it comes to atomic swaps, you need to leave your wallet open. So if you're a really kind of security focused person, you wouldn't want all your funds on your your Decrediton wallet while you're doing atomic swaps because it leaves the wallet open. So having that second wallet's kind of I don't know, it's a security measure in a way. That's kind of one way I've seen it. But it just the Bison wallet kind of took on a life of its own after years of development, and they added all these features to where it really can be a go-to wallet if you're in Decred, which is great. People have a choice. You can use the purely Decred or Bison wallet. The Bison wallet has the stable coins and Bitcoin, and really it's an excellent multi-coin wallet. I would like to see new proposals for Decrediton to kind of do a little more maintenance, breathe a little life into it. I think it's a bit of a shame. It's development's kind of stopped. I do think there are things you can maybe look at as far as UI goes, making maybe the mixing look a little more interesting. Like you could list all the coin joins you've done. You could list the total amount of coins you've mixed. There's some cool metrics you could add in there that wouldn't be insanely difficult.
What's also interesting is Bison Wallet is also included in Decrediton. So yeah, you can launch Bison Wallet from inside Decrediton. I mean, I always think, well, I mean, this is just repeating what Exa said, but I always think of Decrediton as my kind of vault and Bison Wallet as my kind of interoperability wallet. Also, there's Bison Relay, which is another wallet, which is our Lightning wallet, where you can do messages and microtransactions and things like that. They're all great products. There was discussion about, Victor brought it up, about something that could be done for Decrediton, which is move from the Electrum front end to a Flutter front end. I'm not sure that I would want to see Decrediton do that, but certainly take Decrediton, make a new product and see if it works. It'd be pretty cool.
We got one more from Arixius. DCRDEX server admin can manipulate the order book. No,
No,
that's
impossible.
never happened, and I don't even know if that's theoretically impossible. I'll be honest, I don't know if it's possible. I seriously doubt it. I doubt they would have shipped DCRDEX if that was even a thing. But again, the mesh is going to come eventually. It is going to be done on the mesh eventually. So
the server is just a communication server. So literally, it just when you trigger a swap, it kind of says, "Hey, person that we're swapping with, this message just happened." And this message has happened on chain. So it basically tells you that something has happened on chain with each, because obviously you're going to be dealing with two different chains. So Bitcoin and Decred, and it just says, hey, this has happened. And then it flings back, hey, the next part of the process happened. Oh, now it's time for the final part of it. But everything actually happens on chain, but the actual server just relays that message so you get it in a timely fashion. And to be clear, the timely fashion is something like free confirmations, but the refund process is something like 8 hours. So in there isn't really any chance of taking someone's wallets or anything, taking someone's coins, because you could check the blockchain yourself. Also, everything happens in epochs. So a kind of a 3-second interval where everything has to happen. So if the funds are there, they kind of have to take it from the other side. So there's no chance of say a front running or moving the order books, so you can scrape some fees or whatever. That just doesn't happen. And also, Bison Wallet doesn't have fees. So everything, that's another thing. I always forget this about DCRDEX. It doesn't have fees. There are no fees. There are no middlemen. The server that's in place is literally just a communication server to make sure that each participant is getting the next message, in the sequence.
Right. Yeah, I think that's about it. If anyone has anything else, go ahead and ask. But yeah, things are moving forward. Decred's now on Kraken, so tell your friends and family. Very easy to buy, very easy. I mean, we don't recommend you hold your coins on exchanges, but hey, you could do it on Kraken. I've never used Kraken personally, and as a New York resident, I can't. So I can't give a full kind of review of how it works, but it's going to be a great thing moving forward, and it's certainly going to, I think, revitalize the community.
Yeah, definitely, and thank you guys for commenting. It really, I like answering the questions. Actually, it's really nice to see people interested enough to kind of put out a comment and and get your comment in there. So that's fantastic. Thank you. And any questions you guys have got, that's what we're here for, to answer away. And like Exitus said, Kraken is a massive event, but we are moving forward in the right direction. So anyone that was kind of complaining about marketing not happening, it is happening. Things that kind of the infrastructure stuff are getting put in place. There are still things that I'd like to see done. B2C Pay Server, the proposal for that is now finished, and it'd be nice to see if they can get that over the line. It'd also be nice to see some conversations with the Cake Wallet team, Seth in particular, to see how we can get all of our stuff integrated, or Decred integrated into all of their stuff. So there's still loads more to do, but these conversations are happening. You know, we keep moving forward. Become part of the team. Join the Vanguard if you want to participate. Learn more about it, and trust me, Decred is something I've never regretted. And trust me, bro. It's something I've never regretted, and honestly, it's a great project. I love it. Exitus, always a pleasure. I'll let you sign us off. But thank you guys. Thanks everyone for coming by.
Yeah, thanks guys for watching, and yeah, hopefully things get started here pretty soon with Kraken and our new DCR USD pair. I think it's a new chapter for